Groove City.
Hey, what's up? I'm Lefty.
And I'm Rich Furniss, and welcome to another episode of Groove City.
That's right. We are very excited to bring one of our super close friends in here for this episode of Groove City. You might have seen him on the festival stages. You might have seen him at Burning Man. Sometimes he swipes right to funk. Please give it up for N2N. What is up?
Hi, friends.
Welcome. How you been?
Been all right. Just got back from a nice little run of shows. Played an amazing festival this past weekend called Any Patch of Grass.
Nice.
Big into the community festivals right now. Really, really love the energy there.
Yeah, you've been crushing it. You've been doing all sorts of different events all around the country and world, to be honest. You've been traveling nonstop this year, it seems like. A lot of exciting stuff happening for you.
Thanks. Yeah, can always feel like I'm doing, always feel like I'm not doing enough, but it does feel pretty good to be on the road quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's an artist mentality in general. Every artist wishes that they were doing more, and I think it's tough sometimes with that. But I mean, you're killing it on the festival circuit, playing shows. One of the things that I like about a lot of the shows that you do, as well as we were talking about this a little bit off camera, is like so many of them are very like community based and like smaller, like intimate communities, and I feel like you've become a big part of that, especially in the Burning Man community.
I feel like, I think that the culture that happens at Burning Man and people really embracing, I guess, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, like kind of when it comes to events and music, and like kind of curating the crowd based off of, similar like values.
Yeah.
I think parties that are focused with that in mind have become a lot more common in the last few years, and because of the, I guess, history that I've had at Burning Man, I've been fortunate enough to play quite a few of them, and I love them. Every single time it's been a positive experience. And I think something I was thinking about this past weekend is, as a lot of the festival circuits and a lot of the parties get bigger and bigger and bigger with the venues raising their capacity, and the big players in the industry pushing for hundreds of thousands of people at their festivals. I think there's another niche or door is open for these smaller like micro festivals or micro clubs that are really built on community to flourish, and I hope that becomes even more and more common.
I think it will. I mean, I think you already kind of see it with some of like the members only clubs that are coming into existence. A lot of the very heavily curated clubs where it's like they know the environment that they want to create for their audience and for their community, really. And I think it goes back to the word community, and being able to do that, I think, is really special when everybody is really there for the music. Everyone is really there for the people around them. You brought up a word before off camera too, where they feel safe, where they can just like let loose. And I think it's increasingly important in our, current climate, because everybody's so self-conscious, so much Instagram, so much of like how they feel like they have to act or be at the club. But I miss the days before, Instagram, before there were cell phone videos, where I would go to the club and I gave zero fucks about, I almost held it back, about what was going on. But now I think, even I go to clubs and I'm like, you feel judged in certain ways depending on who's in your environment and all of that. And I think, feeling in that safe space is important, Yeah.
And like you were saying too, I feel like, you have developed this community of your own, in a sense, in all these different cities, from burners being located all around the world, and, kind of developing that audience a little bit, and being such close friends, and getting to go to Denver together and like seeing that crowd there, and how those people really love you and embrace you, and you getting to go down to Arizona and DJ in all these other cities now that kind of like are like micro communities, from that whole camp, and like, that, well, not the camp, the festival, but I forget the camps are at the festival, don't forgive me. But, just seeing that whole thing kind of populate is really amazing to watch. And you definitely have like this core audience that I kind of, observe, and I see them all kind of have the similarities, and it makes sense they all kind of funnel down to you, from like all your shows and stuff that you're doing. It's amazing to see.
Oh, thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, a show is, I think, nothing without the audience. You can have the best music in the world, and if the crowd it doesn't come correct, and if they're not, really sharing the energy with you, then it's not a good show. I think that a lot of people are dealing with that, you know, going to shows where the crowd is pushy or disrespectful or rude and doesn't, you know, ruins the experience for people. Yeah. And I think something that these micro festivals and these, you know, communities that kind of all build things together have gotten correct is they focus on the, you know, the vibes and the energy that they want to put out first and foremost before they focus on, you know, the music or the ticket sales or whatever. They're like, we're going to create this incredible experience for people that are, you know, that is safe and that is it has an atmosphere that people are, you know, want to express themselves in. They feel safe to express themselves in. I think one of the best things about the festival that I was just at is I didn't see any phones out at all. Basically, no one was texting, no one was like doing anything other than just like kind of living in the moment and being around people that they either had known previously or just got to know that weekend. And it was terrific. You know, there wasn't any kind of weird vibes or anyone too fucked up or anything like that. And I think that kind of creates a more harmonious experience when you add the music to it too. And everyone is just already in this kind of like nice flow, nice vibe. Nobody is, you know, like triggered or feeling like uncomfortable. You know, it's kind of, I think that you have to have that culture and that, I guess, the community set up first before you can, you know that you're having a great event. But at the end of the day, money always gets in the way of, you know, money always gets in the way of stuff like this. And it's one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is the music, you know, music as a product and music as a business is often kind of counterintuitive with what we love about music, and
especially dance music,
especially dance
and parties
music,
and events like that. You know, where everybody's
I think
just there to
especially,
celebrate.
you know, you kind of see this secular thing. You saw that happen with the giant EDM phase, right? Like all of the EDM stuff came from warehouse parties and all that. And it became so popular, it became a money machine that it kind of lost sight of the soul of what it was. Yeah. And I think you've kind of seen that with, you know, where house music, tech house is right now is, I think it's become so popular and there's so much crossover and it's such a cool thing to do that so many people have gravitated towards it that it's kind of losing some of its soul in some places. And I think there's still a lot of safe places to go for it. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's totally in that direction, but I think as things get more popular and as things become more profitable and more of a business, sometimes it will lose some of its soul because of that.
Yeah. Well, let's forget about the business side of music and let's talk about what got you into it. What got you into DJing? What got you into DJing dance music? You've been in New York a long time. I know you went to school here. Let's rewind and take it back. I mean, you went to school for music.
Yep.
But you weren't DJing already. You got into DJing a little after?
I started DJing at the same time that I started my college experience.
Did you know when you got into music that you wanted to DJ, or did it start off as you wanted to be like in a band or play an instrument?
Right. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and I started...
Great music scene.
Yeah, great music scene. But I started playing guitar when I was like 12 or 13, and I started playing piano shortly after that. I took guitar lessons when I was younger and kind of taught myself how to play basic piano chords and melodies and stuff like that, because I always knew that music was a really important way for me to feel like I could, I guess, express my feelings. I didn't feel like I was very comfortable doing that with my words when I was growing up, whether that was environment or just something that I wasn't like there yet with myself. So when I was playing music, it was a safe space for me to be up in my room and playing, you know, along and being able to get those, I guess, more complex feelings out in a way that felt safe to me.
I love that.
However, I was not cool enough to be invited to be in anyone's band. So I was always doing it on my own. I didn't have an opportunity to share my music with other people because I just wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
Damn, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Coming from someone that was in that many bands.
In, what was it? In 9th grade, I joined this metal band and I had to like audition, and these guys were super cool. And like, I was really skateboarding. I was wearing like ringer tees, 8-ball shirt, you know, the whole thing. And they're like, yo, you should try out. I was like, yeah, let me try out. I'll come kill it. And like, I had 2 small amps that I wired together to be super loud and all this stuff, and went and jammed with these guys. And they're like, you're super sick, but Mike, the bass player, doesn't want you in the band because you don't look metal enough. And I was like, you're lost, man. You're lost. But
I think it's a big thing too. What you'd brought up is like a way to express yourself. I feel like a lot of people, when they're younger, they get into music as an outlet to express themselves. I think that's the arts in general. I think that was a big thing for me getting into music as well. As like I was kind of always nerdy, floated around a lot of groups of friends, but didn't have like a close knit circle, especially in high school. And I think that's when I started DJing on the opposite side. And I think, and also like producing and making music's an acid back in the day. And nice. I think it was a way for me to let out those complex emotions. Like I also grew up dyslexic, so my vocabulary and everything wasn't really good. And I think it was a really good way for me to express myself and to let out that energy. And I think too, even now, like we talk about it all separately, is like when you write a piece of music or when you're able to produce and have that time, it can be almost a therapeutic experience, even as an adult.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Getting into the electronic side of things, I grew up with two albums that were electronic albums. My first actual records actually were "You've Come a Long Way, Baby" by Fatboy Slim and "Play" by Moby.
Sick. My dad got those records. That's fire.
My dad got those for me when I was like 7 years old in the 90s. Yeah, and so I would put them on in the we had like a living room with a record with like a stereo system, and obviously this was the 90s, so couldn't bring music outside yet. And I would open the French doors out to the backyard, and I would jump on the trampoline and listen to those records on repeat for hours and hours and hours on end. And so fast forward to when I came to or right before I went to college, I went to my first festival, which was Bonnaroo.
Oh, sick.
And I took ecstasy for the first time, and I saw Pretty Lights DJ, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I saw Pretty Lights DJ, and I was like, oh my God, blew my mind. I was like, this guy is doing it all by himself.
Yeah.
If I couldn't be in a band, why don't I just I love electronic music. I want to make music. Why don't I just try to do what this guy's doing? And so that's when I decided that I wanted to be a DJ.
It's a dope experience with Pretty Lights, especially because that's like,
I'll say this too. I feel like that is kind of, it seems like the point of view that a lot of people have right now is like, okay, you don't have to be in a band with other people to make music, because as somebody who's played in many bands over the years, it's complicated, you know? It's like being in a relationship with like, 3 to 5 other people. So it's like, it gets tough, it gets hairy, there's a lot of emotions flying, there's a lot of ego, and all those things always come into play. And yeah, I kind of had a similar experience once I was like, oh shoot, I can do this on my own and I don't need anybody else around me. This is the way. What was your first DJ gig in New York City? Presuming that was your first DJ gig ever here in the city.
My first DJ gig in New York City was at the Bryant Park Hotel in 2011.
Was that your first ever gig?
It was my first ever gig. And I had got the gig because a girlfriend of mine at the time, she was dating this guy who was Brazilian and was in with a lot of the club promoters in New York. And he's actually the reason that I got, kind of put on a lot of the meatpacking parties afterwards, which is great. I mean, I owe him a lot. He was kind of a mess, but I owe him a lot.
Yeah.
and just getting the ball rolling for me.
Meatpacking was pretty sloppy back then.
Oh, it was so great.
But it was a vibe.
It was so great. But I showed up at the hotel, and they had the cellar bar, this club in the basement. And I'm sure it's something else now. But I got on, and I played 3 songs, and the manager comes up behind me and he taps me on the shoulder and he's like, all right, buddy, you're done. And he kicks me off stage after 3 tracks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was my first ever show, and I was mortified. I was a kid.
Was it the blends? Was it the mixing or the song selection?
It was the song selection. And, at the end of the day...
Slim and Moby, what were you playing? I don't know why they would kick you off for that. But.
I don't remember what I played, but it wasn't good. And it made me realize, I think it was the most important lesson that I've ever had as in my career, is like, it made me realize like, oh, you got to play what the people want. You got to play like... You got to be able to read a crowd. You got to be able to keep, the audience's attention, or you got to keep butts in seats. You got to keep people buying bottles. Like that particular night, I'm sure it was people buying bottles or buying drinks. But that lesson kind of permeated through the rest of my career, and up until now, where I'm just like, okay, well, the audience, like their experience comes before mine.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a little antithetical to how a lot of people perform these days, but I'm a crowd first DJ.
I think it's one of the most important things. I think everybody needs that like moment. And there's a lot of DJs who I know, who I've played with over the last, almost 20 years, that haven't gotten that lesson. I had the exact same lesson for me in Chicago. It wasn't the first club I played, but it was the first like big club I played, and Same thing. We played 3 songs, and the song they took us down on, which they said we were playing way too underground, funny enough, was Daft Punk.
Okay.
Wow.
And they were like, but I think it's real, and I think I've always performed in a way where it's like, you can always put a piece of yourself into any set, even if you're curating it for the crowd. And I think it's like what you brought up about the festival. It's about creating a vibe all together, right? It takes the audience, it takes the staff, it takes the promoters, the bartenders, everybody to create that experience. And instead of being like selfish, oh, hey, I'm going to create this experience, you have to listen to everybody around you to curate the experience that you know everybody will like. And I think that ultimately makes a better DJ, makes a better experience for everybody. And even if you are a main stage festival DJ, like you at that point, you know your audience, but you still have to curate to what you know they evolve into.
100%. And I think that a lot of people are scared that if they cater directly to their audience, they'll be seen as like, oh, you're pandering or you're selling out or you're not like, you know, that it was inauthentic because you're playing XYZ songs that people want to hear or whatever. And they're scared that it's like not their, you know, I want to put myself out there and show people what I've got. And I think that's such a cop out. I think that's such a lazy and like kind of kind of a lame way of thinking about it.
I think I look at it like each song is a paintbrush, right, or a color, and how you use that color can be different to your set, right? So it's like you could play songs that you know will work for an audience, but how you play it is going to be different than how somebody else will play it, and how you blend them together and create that tension and release can be different into you.
It's funny how you look at it because this will air later, so nobody will know what timestamp this is, but there was a really big show at the Brooklyn Mirage this weekend, and I just spoke to 2 people that separately attended, and this is, you know, it's a really big venue, and one person said that it was one of the best shows they've ever been to in their entire life. And another person said it was really lame. They played really commercial. And I was like, okay, so the artist had to probably feel like they had to play more commercial to play to such a large audience, while one person really loved it, the other person didn't, right? So I just found that really interesting.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I guess you can't please everyone, but you're just trying to, you know, create the best experience for the highest highest percentage of people that you can, right? Because every time I play a set, someone leaves it saying, you know,
right? And another person's like, that was the best,
and other people were like, that was.
I mean,
the
it's
best.
hard.
Exactly.
Like you get big in the underground doing what you love, and then you start getting to play in front of larger and larger audiences. At which point you feel like, okay, there's going to be more of a general crowd coming to these events now. Maybe I need to please them, but as somebody who has come up from, you know, playing small clubs and you know, small touring gigs to now playing festivals and stuff like that, do you feel like you have to change your sets at all to kind of like open up to a larger crowd that might be there that isn't familiar with your sound, that won't totally understand your underground original flavor, but then maybe be more open to like the edits and bootlegs and stuff like that? I think that's why those are also working really well right now with house music being so popular and trendy in a sense, you know?
Oh, they're small festivals, so.
Well, you've done some big and small festivals.
I have, but I think that the way that I like to do it, and kind of bouncing off of what Rick was saying, is that you kind of sandwich it in, so I can still sprinkle my flavor in there and play a lot of my own music. But you know, if it's like an Oreo cookie, you've got 2 of your own songs in the middle, the cream filling. You kind of put something that's like, oh, I know this.
Universal.
I know this edit's bussin'.
I hate the cream. It's the worst part of the Oreo. Hate the cream. I'm still trying to think what they wanted you to play at the Bryant Park Hotel. I'm like, 2011, yeah.
Pre-Avicii, bro.
Pre-Avicii. They wanted like Calvin Harris. They wanted Swedish House Mafia.
This was pre, I think Feel So Close came out in 2012, or is that 2010?
I think it was 2010.
Okay.
I think 2011 he's already in like bounce era.
Probably should have done like Tiny Tempa, remember that?
Oh yeah.
Probably should have done stuff like that.
Nice.
Like I played like I Remember by Deadmau5, and it was just too long and drawn out, and it wasn't
that one is that's a epic build.
So you were in New York for a while, and I know eventually you moved out to San Francisco before you came back. Do you feel like that helped kind of ramp things up for your DJ career that you've been working on and stuff like that? Do you think that was like a moment of elevation for you being out in a different scene? Because San Fran, like pre-COVID, had a really thriving dance and like nightlife scene out there too.
Right. I was in Los Angeles before I was in San Francisco.
Oh, that's right.
I moved to LA first.
In LA, yeah.
Moved to LA and then I moved up to San Francisco, and it's hard to tell. I think I needed it more for my own personal development than I did for my creative development. I think I don't know where I would end up if I just stayed in New York the whole time. I might be farther ahead than I am now. I might be farther behind than I am now. There's no way to know.
Do you feel like there was any pinnacle moment where like things started to shift? Because like when we met what, 2015, 2016 in Santa Monica, like you were headlining parties out there already. and things like that? Like, when do you feel like things kind of started to really be like, okay, like I'm going to really push this all the way through and pursue this?
I still haven't felt that yet. To be honest with you, yeah, I still haven't felt that. I've got no idea. I think a big, a big moment for me was signing with my agent, which happened in 2022. And I think that really, it definitely amplified my, like my bookings and my, touring capacity, and it opened me up to a lot of new markets because I was able to hop on to shows with other people on the roster and play parties that I never would have had access to otherwise. And I think by, kind of the trickle down effect, you open yourself up to new markets and you're opening yourself up to new fans, because a lot of the parties that I played, people had no idea who I was. Yeah. And so that's an entirely new audience that you can touch. Exactly. And so the idea is, like, hopefully if I play this show in this city that I've never been to and people have no idea who I am, then, I do a good job and they enjoyed it. And hopefully the next time, a little bit of people know who I am, a small amount of people, and that the next time, like years and years later. Yeah. And that's kind of how I was able to build the community in Denver, is I've been working with the same person for over 5 years, since before COVID.
Well, I think that kind of shows too, like everybody looks at like an overnight success, and everybody kind of knows like there's no real overnight success. And I think it really comes from doing those parties and slowly building up your audience in these different markets and being able to expose your style, your music to other people. It's a slow burn. I mean, right. You said you were going there for 5 years. Now you've built up this, audience that wants to be at every N2N show when you're there, because they know that you're going to create the experience, the vibe, the energy that matches what they want, and I think doing stuff like that's super valuable. One question I had though, because obviously, he's put out some of the biggest bangers of 2024, is when did you really start producing heavily, and when did you put out your first, your own production?
I started producing at the same time I started to DJ, self-taught in 2011. Yeah. And I think I put out my first production in 2012 as a different project, and it was a pile of garbage.
What was the original project called?
It was called ESO. So I'm big on the acronyms. Big on the 3 letters.
Yeah. Can you, for anybody who doesn't know, can you tell us what N2N stands for?
N2N, doesn't have a real name to, it's not like a 3 words
it's not
attributed
night to night for those 24-hour DJ sets.
Yeah. But when I was growing up, my stepmom, she moved over from the UK to marry my dad, and my dad's name is Neil and my name is Nick, and my stepmom had me in her phone as N2N because I'm the second N in her life after my dad. And my stepmom and my dad were huge influences on me really taking this path. They're the only people that have been supportive since day one and encouraged me to do what I love. So it's kind of an homage to that side of my family.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you wouldn't have been able to get as far if you didn't make your own music?
Oh, I think you gotta make your own you gotta make your own tracks, unless you're just a wizard on the decks and you're an all-time icon. And even the people that are, just DJ first are still putting out their own tracks,
or hiring ghost producers.
Yeah.
That happens.
But people, I think it's imperative because, it's just another avenue for people to learn about you. And everyone, like, going back to a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, the fastest way to blow up is to write a hit.
Yeah. Clearly.
And that's what everyone wants to do.
I saw a clip on social media the other day where it was just like, everybody is one project away from being a superstar, and it's crazy that that's what it is these days. It doesn't matter how long it is. And you see some of these people blow up overnight, and then you're like, oh, wow, they've been doing this for 10 years already. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
That kind of
just took that one song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if you're not writing a hit, the best way to, grow your audience is to be there in person.
Yeah.
Is to, kind of put in the work and create the experience over years and years. And you kind of grow your fan base that way in a grassroots way. Yeah. And I would argue that that's, a more sustainable way to grow your audience.
We were just talking about this before you walked in the room.
True.
Oh yeah? Yeah. It's ESP.
That's it, man.
Well, as somebody that I feel like, you definitely made some marks. I mean, you've been doing some pretty active touring for quite some time before you signed with an agency. Just, to get it out there, any like advice you would give to people that it's like, hey, look, I'm getting into DJing. I'm starting to get really good locally. I'm getting more bookings. I want to get into production. I mean, what steps did you take to start putting your places in other cities and other countries? You know, because I feel like you started doing national and international touring outside of wherever you were living pretty early on, and you were able to kind of insert yourself into places, and that's a hard thing to do for a lot of people.
I think the reason I was able to do that is honestly a tremendous amount of luck and right place, right time. I think I've been going to Burning Man for the last 10 years. Yeah. And the first time I went, I recorded my sunrise set, which was like happened very serendipitously. And I posted it on the internet, and it, you know, kind of took off, and a lot of people discovered me that way.
That kind of became a thing for you too. I remember every year you would post your like 4 hour, 2 hour, whatever, like you would post at least long
between
mixes.
4 and 5 hours, like generally, yeah. And it's become a thing, and it's become something that people seek out in the desert, but also I've been able to develop a community around it inside and outside of the desert, and people that have found me that way have brought me out to their own, kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, their own events that they're curating with their own little communities, and that kind of just spreads naturally because a lot of the communities are connected like webs, essentially. Maybe they have like... Especially
with Burning Man, with all the other parties outside, as a very community-based thing. How did you even get involved with that to begin with?
With the burn?
Yeah. How did you start getting to DJ there? How did you, sort all that out?
So I went to my first burn the year I graduated from college, and my dad called me and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to this with me and drive across the country?" I was like, "Sweet." That's dope. I was like, "Sure." I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I had just gotten back. I was living in Brazil for a little bit after college, and I'd just gotten back.
I can't even get my dad to go to Ultra, and it's like 2 miles from his house. Not his vibe.
Yeah, he had a ticket for me and everything, and I was like, "Sweet, let's do it." And my dad and I drove across the country together. And
wow! Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's sick.
We did. It was awesome. I had quite the adventure. But I kind of put it out there. I think it was on Twitter, actually, back when I was using Twitter, which it's been 10 years since I've used Twitter.
It's gone downhill.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard through the grapevine. But I put it out on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, I'm playing Burning Man. Does anyone, go?" And someone reached back out to me, this guy named Dan, and he is San Francisco based. And he was like, "Hey, my camp is going with an art car. Would you be interested in playing on it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what that means. That sounds cool."
So he was already following you.
He was already following me.
Knew your DJing skills and your music and stuff.
Probably from, it was like the SoundCloud bootleg era. Do you remember that era of SoundCloud? And
of course.
So
that was like the tail end of Bloghouse movement.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'd had a couple like bootlegs go, semi-viral, get a couple 100,000 plays or whatever. And I think I got some followers that way, and he was one of them. And he invited me to play on the art car, which was the original Titanic synth. The art car I continued to do Sunrise on Wednesday mornings, but this was not the giant, brilliant version that it is now. This was an ice cream truck with a little, with some lights on it.
Hell yeah.
And I remember getting there, and I had no idea what I was doing. They said, meet at the camp before sunset or whatever, and I was definitely late, and the car was actually leaving out of the camp by the time I got there, and I was like, wait. And I just made it. If I had been 5 minutes later, I would have missed it. But I got on the car, I played my sunrise set, I recorded it, and the rest is a little bit of history.
Nice.
Very serendipitous.
Amazing. And you were telling me last year with all the rain and stuff like that, and I remember you seeing some videos you played in the back of a semi truck that ended up being one of the craziest parties, I think, from the whole thing, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So it had rained. I did my sunrise set at Bubbles and Bass, so the second one I do, and it just started to rain right at the end of it. So we hibernated for a couple hours and came out of hibernation, which was just sheltering in the tent, and the whole desert was just a mud pit. It was all soaking wet.
Oh, we saw the videos.
Oh, yeah. So we walked across. I was on the other side of the horseshoe. I was staying, two of my the agents on my team were at Burning Man as well, and we were all together sheltering, and they were staying on the other side of the desert, on the other side of the horseshoe. And so we walked all the way across, 25-minute walk, and got to their camp, which also was completely shut down, as everything was. And I ran into Felix Cartal, who's another DJ on the agency. And we were chatting for a bit. I'd never met him in person. We were chatting for a bit, and we were like, "Hey, they've got a little XDJ system set up in the trailer. Do you want to, get a beer and go play music?
not?
Like, why not? There's nothing else to do. We could just jam for, nobody was in there. We just jam for a little bit and hang out, and it sounds fun. So we got up there and we started playing, and 30 minutes later there was 50 people in the semi truck, and then 30 minutes after that there were like 100 people in the semi truck, and we played for like 5.5 or 6 hours just because there's nothing else to do, until we finally got tired at like 4 or 5 a.m. and went to bed. Amazing. But that was awesome. That was awesome. And another, like, so many of the best, I think, experiences, and I think in life in general, but with music especially, are moments of serendipity where you don't expect something to happen, but it does. And I think
it makes it that much more special too.
Exactly. Like, because we look forward to so much, and we anticipate so much, and we expect so much, right? We have so many expectations for ourselves, for, the songs that we put out, for the shows that we play, that it can cloud how special what we do is on a daily basis. It can cloud like amazing the opportunities that we get are, because we're expecting it to be just life-changing and mind-blowing every time. But that's just not how it works. Right. When you something that's like built on serendipity that happens unexpectedly shows up, you have no expectations for it, and so no matter what happens, it's going to be great, because you don't expect it to be the best thing of your life. You don't expect it to move your career forward or change your path in any way.
Nice. To kind of change the subject to your music, you've had some amazing releases coming out. And you have some really exciting things coming up. Anything you want to mention that you're excited about? I mean, you have some really cool signings on the way. You've been getting yourself, associated with some really incredible labels and all of that. Anything you want to mention or shout out at this time?
I mean, as a New Yorker, I think that I have to mention that I've got a track on Nervous Records coming out in October. I think that's kind of a
classic and amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a goal for any New Yorker to have a track on the iconic.
I think outside of New York too. Yeah. It applies everywhere. But you've been releasing with Glasgow Underground on the regular. You recently released with Strange Love, which is under the Tool Room umbrella. You got some other exciting things coming out.
I've got Technique coming up.
Amazing. Yeah,
I've got Technique coming up. I've got Solotoko coming up. So some great artist-run labels. Yeah. I've got Nervous in the fall. Just hoping to keep pushing the needle forward, and exposing more people to my music, which I hope is of enough quality to continue to get me booked in more places and share the love with as many people as possible.
And one thing that I forgot to mention in the intro is also 1/3 of Quincy Boy Records here.
Hey, we've got 3/3 of Quincy Boy Records here.
3/3 of records in the house. I know. Well, you specifically, but great to all be here together chatting about your history and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to mention that because I don't know if people know that. I was actually jamming with an artist that we have a record coming out with, and you had accepted the promo, and they're like, sick. N2N got my promo. I was like, hell yeah, he's part of the label. He's like, what? I didn't know that. Oh, now I feel like an idiot. I think he reached out to you. So you might have got a DM from somebody. So I thought that was really cool and special. And I was like, you know what? Let's tell everybody real quick before I forget. So yeah, I mean, what are you planning for in the future? What are you hoping to achieve? I mean, I know everything is so uncertain, and it's like such a competitive industry right now, and things are always changing and tweaking and different trends and stuff happening. But like, what are your short-term and long-term goals, just roughly, if you want to talk about any of that? I mean, I know you have some exciting releases coming up. Is there anything that you particularly have your eye on in your career that, you are, ambitious to receive?
I think my long-term goal is to continue to feel like I am being fulfilled by the work that I'm doing. And I think to feel that way, I would like to be continuously having the opportunity to share my music with people. And I think that is a very, it's definitely a slippery slope emotionally, because if I don't have a, and that's something that I need to figure out on my own, and how to feel content without, things that I want. If I don't have like a stacked schedule, I don't know that I'm going to be doing XYZ, shows or festivals, that I don't feel, consummately busy, then I don't feel like I'm doing enough, or I don't feel like I'm being fulfilled, and I don't feel like I'm, I guess, making enough progress to continue to do what I love. And so I think my long-term goal outside of that is to be content with what I have and what I have achieved. But I guess within that, my long-term goal is to continue just to build up communities in different markets around the country and hopefully around the world eventually, and continue to play music for people that I care about.
It's the ultimate goal. I love that.
Yeah, man. And it's definitely happening. I think everybody sees it, and, you're definitely getting into more places, larger events. Your music is always just getting better and better and getting signed to bigger labels. So I think I can speak for everyone when I say that everybody's excited to see, what your journey has to offer and bring to everyone else. So
well, thank you.
Keep going at it. Everybody's excited about it.
And for anybody who hasn't been part of the journey yet, where can they find you on socials?
You can find me at N2N Music on Instagram and occasionally on TikTok, never on Twitter.
No X here.
Oh, X,
Nice.
sorry. Yeah, that's how detached I am.
Well, I want to thank Nick for, being on the show with us, having the whole Quincy Boy family here all together. I want to thank the Sound Collective for letting us be here. We're 28 Broadway at Sound Collective, where you guys can come join membership, use all the beautiful gear in this building. We have intensives that go on if you want to home in your DJ production or instrument skills. We also have online learning where you guys can learn right from the comfort of your own home. I'm Rich Furniss.
And I'm Lefty. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our guests.
Much love.
Peace.